This week I'm speaking with Ravi Krishnaswami, who is the Director of Energy and Power Systems for Frost & Sullivan across the Asia-Pacific region. Ravi, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you.
It's International Energy Week this week in Singapore, and global leaders from the energy and utilities industries have gathered here to talk, amongst other things, about the smart grid. Now, I understand that's an opportunity for the ICT industry, but first tell me, what is a smart grid? How does it work?
So smart grid is basically marrying the ICT technology with the utility industry. Utility industry, as you know, is very traditional, has been there for many years without much technological change. So now what we're seeing is the ICT companies are going to come in and help utilities get smarter, get more real time in terms of information exchange.
Okay, so what's the benefit of having a smart grid?
By having a smart grid, you're building an intelligent information network on the existing grid and ensure that you're able to accommodate all these different technologies, the future ones like electric vehicles, and then make the grid solid and then prepare for the future, basically.
Which companies or countries do you perceive as being the most progressive in implementing, or at least beginning to think about implementing, the smart grid?
Within Asia, we see countries like Australia, New Zealand, possibly Korea leading the forefront in terms of the smart grid rollout. Singapore is definitely fairly, I think, having a long-term vision. They are coming up with their intelligent electricity system, but they do not have yet a plan to roll out smart meters or what we call advanced metering infrastructure on a full scale, at least not in the immediate future.
What do you think are the main obstacles to making the grid smarter?
There are few broad obstacles for every country. It starts with regulatory, technological, financial, organizational, etc. But what's happening is there's no interoperability, which means I think what is being developed and tested in Australia may not be able to work in UK.
So what are the opportunities for the ICT sector to help enable the smart grid?
I think telecom companies and the ICT companies have a role to play across the spectrum of value chain of the smart grid. See, for the advanced metering infrastructure, you need to have communication infrastructure. Once we move a step further into the homes, we're going to have what's called a home area network, which means your appliances will get intelligent by the day. Those appliances are going to talk to the utility through the meter. The security vendors have a big role to play. Of course, the back-end systems like customer information systems, your meter data management systems, all those need a complete revamp from what is there today.
How are the energy and ICT sectors working together to create the smarter future? Are they working together?
I think so, yes, they are working together. See, what's happening is we have few stakeholders here. The utility is the central to everything because they own the grid, they own the power sector, so they need to act. But unfortunately, utility is a very traditional sector, very conservative sector, so I think it takes time for them to change their mindset. But what's happening is we have three sets of companies coming together. One is the traditional power engineering companies like GE, Siemens, Ariba. I think Ariba is not part of Alstom. So a lot of these companies, I think, which are developing smart grid technologies, largely for the grid side, but also to a certain extent on the consumer side. Then we have the ICT company like Cisco, you have Avayas of the world, I think you have IBMs of the world again, I think, Alcatel-Lucent, all of them having a role to play, I think at least trying to see where they can enter SAP, so where they can enter, what they can do. Then we have the building technology companies like, say, Honeywell, building management companies. End of the day, I think it's all about utility, software, and also the buildings.
How aware are consumers, what we in the ICT world often refer to as end users, how aware are they of the smart grid and how it applies to them?
Consumers, I wouldn't say globally they are aware, but certain countries, they have definitely campaigned to educate them. But still, I think there's been very less awareness. And we, in fact, Frost & Sullivan did a survey in the US in terms of demand response and how customers in North America are aware. It came out that I think majority of the customers did not know about smart grid from the utilities. It was not through the education by utilities, it was more through other internet or other media sources basically. Customers need to know a lot of information which they are not having access today. So I think smart grid is going to make that change. And also what's happening is there are independent ICT companies like Google developing tools for customers to better optimize energy usage. So this way I think we're going to see a sea of change. There's going to be a lot of information packed on the grid which will be utilized by third parties, and I would not even be surprised, I think, if there is going to be an emerging business model wherein apart from selling electricity, the utilities will be able to sell information and make money on that.
So with the opportunity for ICT companies to contribute to the smart grid being so significant, Why do you think we're seeing so few speaking and sponsoring and taking part in International Energy Week in Singapore?
It's not that bad, I think, but then sometimes I think it gets overdone, so that you see there's a bit of a dip in interest. But otherwise, I think, I'm sure a lot of ICT companies are aware, but again, there's a lot of education that needs to be done because there are a lot of other medium and small size companies who may not be aware of the opportunity available to them.
Ravi Krishnaswami, thank you very much indeed.